Welcome back, friends, to the shop. This video is probably the most difficult video I've ever had to make in my 13 years on YouTube. There's a trend going around that a question is asked: if you had to choose the 10 most important things in your life and you had 10 minutes to do it, what would you take? Now I'm going to do a little play on that. I'm going to limit that to your shop. Here's the scenario. Someone comes to you and says you can choose 10 things from your shop. We're going to relocate you onto a new homestead, and you're going to have to make do with whatever you choose. If you got 10 minutes to do it, what you take is all that you have. Go. So here's what here's what I've come up with. Number 1 of the 10 is going to be a spade shovel, a fire shovel in particular. This is going to give me the ability to do fences. This is going to digging holes, digging foundations for buildings, getting trucks unstuck, shoveling snow. There's so many different shovels. I think that the spade is probably the most universal, and this would be my number 1, a spade shovel. 10 tools is not a lot. Number 2 is going to be a chainsaw. Now I had to choose which chainsaw. I went back and forth between something smaller versus something big, and I would end up with the bigger saw. Reason being is that I could slab with this, I could cut big material, I could chainsaw mill with this, make my own lumber. It's going to be a lot more versatile. It's not going to be as handy to use as a small saw, but if I could only have one, I'm going to suffer the big saw because it's just so much more versatile. Now we're understanding with this that the appropriate accoutrement are going to come with these tools, i.e. gas, oil, that sort of thing, you know, sharpening equipment. It's impossible without that. Pro chainsaw, number 2. Number 3 was as difficult as the chainsaw, I think, and I would take an axe, and I would take a mid-size axe. Not a big one, not a small one, because it's got to fill both roles. It has to be able to do small work, i.e. splitting kindling, to be able to use it one-handed for different projects, notching if you're going to be doing timber framing, log construction, firewood. I mean, do we need to explain it? Also, this gives us a striking tool. Not ideal, definitely not an ideal hammer, but if I had to choose between a hammer and an axe, I would probably take an axe. That's what I chose. I'd definitely take an axe. And this is the Grand Force Brooks. I think it's the large forest axe. This is what I would go with. It gives me a good two-handed tool that I could fall timber with, but just as if I could only have one, the large forest axe is going to be my pick. I kind of have in mind when I'm thinking about this is what would I need where I could make a living, where I could make some money so that I could buy the things that I couldn't choose, right? We're not just stuck with this forever, but if I had to, with what I have here, I could cut firewood, I could sell firewood, I could make a living at that, I could go to work doing whatever, shoveling snow, shoveling driveways, whatever you need to do, gardening. I could make some money with those 3 tools. Number 4, and this was the easiest one for me, probably the first one that I chose, would be a worm drive style or a skill saw, right? Corded or cordless, it's not really important. This right here, my dad summed it up years ago. He said, really, if you strip away all the other tools, you could build a house with this. This is going to replace a table saw. This is going to replace a chop saw. This is something that's portable that you can cut anything with. You can cut dimensional lumber with it. If you were to take your chainsaw and slab a big log and then take your skill saw, you can cut 3 1/4 inches deep, I think, with these, or 3 1/8, whatever it is. But you can cut 4x material pretty much with this, and you could make your own lumber. This is absolutely essential. You could build a shed with this. You could build a house with this. You can remodel with it. It's probably one of the most versatile tools in the world, indispensable, and this would be my number 4 pick, and that was an easy one. Now, this one was not quite as easy, but I would take a reciprocating saw. And the reason being is that this is going to give me the ability to cut any possible material. With the right blades, I could cut rebar, I can cut steel, I can cut masonry, I can cut glass. We used to use these in the fire department for when we had car accidents. If we needed to remove glass of the front windshield, we'd get in there and cut it out with a reciprocating saw. Very, very versatile tool. I could go in the wood, I could prune with it, I could cut firewood with it. You can get big, long, aggressive blades. This is an excellent, excellent tool. Very, very handy. A reciprocating saw is, it must be there. There's just no question. I debated back and forth whether to go with hand tools like framing hammer, tool belt, and that sort of thing. But to be honest, what I really grab and what I really use more than that would be a cordless drill. And the biggest one I could get. I get a big Makita that has a hammer drill function. So this gives you the ability now that you can drill holes in concrete or masonry. You can construct anything you need to construct, because most of us are using screws now, or don't use nails near as often as we used to. And this, I could put together anything. We could build a house, we could build a shed, we could build a fence, whatever we need to do. This is also going to take the place of a screwdriver set. With the appropriate bits, of course, it's not as handy as a hand screwdriver in small locations and stuff, but if you could only have one, I think most of us can agree that it would be pretty hard to get through life without a proper cordless drill, right? I mean, goodness, you could hook it up and charge your battery and your alternator with it, right? This is very, very versatile tool. Now, hand tools. Having only 10 choices doesn't give you the ability you can't have. I mean, do you take a socket set? Do you take a wrench set? Do you take a set of screwdrivers? If I could only have two, this is a hand tool set in two pieces right here. I could grab these, and I often do, put them on my back pocket if I don't know what the day is going to involve. Or I don't know, am I going to need to loosen a nut? Am I going to need to tighten something? Do I need to get something loose? This is, without a doubt, the two best, most versatile tools in the world. In my opinion, the big Knipex Cobra pliers, they bite and they hold so strong, almost as strong as a crescent wrench. But you need two, because if you can't tighten something, if you can't hold it on the back, if it's spinning on you. So this combination is excellent. This combination is also what I take when we go on real big loops on the dirt bikes where we might need to fix who knows what. And I don't have weight and space. I take these two items and they're excellent. This is the Knipex adjustable wrench. It's like a set of channel locks, but it locks in like a crescent wrench. So it's really good for tightening nuts and bolts. These two guys would be, what is that, 7 and 8. Those would be in my kit. And we're getting down to it. We only have 2 items left to go. These were probably some of the hardest ones to do. I would take, well, this wasn't hard. This was pretty easy. I would take a vise. I would not take this one. I would take my big snap-on one, a big 6-inch heavy-duty vise. It's essential. I can't even imagine trying to do any projects without having a vise. It's going to be a clamp for us. It's going to act as a press for us. It's going to be able to hold things, projects while we're working on it. A bench vise, maybe you guys should start right there. I think if I were to be setting up a shop and I was starting at absolute zero, where I would start would be with a bench first and a good quality vise. Those two things alone are essential to a shop. Now, the final thing, and this was probably the most controversial, and I went back and forth on this round and round all morning. I have alternates, but to be honest, if my goal is to carve out a life, to be able to make a living, make money, do what I needed to do, I don't know how I could do it without a tape measure. Maybe it's the OCD in me, maybe it's the need to have things true and square and plumb and symmetrical. But yeah, maybe you could make your own tape. I guess you could figure it out. You could cut a board and do that sort of thing. But the convenience of this, and as often as I go to it, and it's one of my most used items, I would definitely take a tape. I went back and forth with this over Spencer logging tape, and just from handiness and ease of use, if I needed to make some money, I needed to do work, I don't know how you could do it without this. So number 10 is a tape measure. Now, all of this is assuming that I can go with my EDC that I have, right? Because that would include my pocket knife, right? I couldn't go on without a pocket knife. If I had to choose between these two, if this was part of my 10, I would take the knife over the tape measure. And I would take this knife, the Benchmade 940. I don't know, it's just the one that I use the most, is the one that I like. It's not perfect, it's not gonna be the ideal knife, but it's the best for all around. But we'll assume that I've already got my EDC intact, which includes a flashlight and a knife. And so that, that takes care of two huge problems right there. Very interesting problem to come up with the solutions for. What might work for me is definitely not going to be working for anyone else. We all have kind of a unique need, but ask yourself this question, and so our voice is cracking here at 52. Ask yourself a question, what 10 items you would take, and please put it in the comments. Let's compare and talk about this and share, because it's a really kind of an interesting thought with using the scenario that I provided. So thanks for watching. May God bless you and your families. I'm going to do another video today that was requested by a lot of you. I didn't really think about it, but some folks have been asking if I have lost weight or what's different. I look different, and I have. I gained a lot of weight and got in really poor shape over COVID. I was very sedentary over the winter, and I actually got up to 221 pounds. Now, I'm 6'4". I'm not a bulky, heavy 6'4". I've always been pretty trim. I think I graduated high school at about 180. And I got up to 221, which is too heavy for me. I mean, I had man boobs and everything. It was disgusting. I was absolutely disgusted. So I decided to change that, and I'll do a video on just some real common sense ways that I lost 130 pounds. I'm down to 189, 190, and got rid of all of those problems, and I'll share that with you. Maybe it'll be helpful. Thanks for watching. May God bless you and your families. Please keep us in your prayers. We pray for you constantly. And we'll see you all on the next video.